A pleasure to be joined by friend of the program, her second time on Helmets and Heels in 1 week, Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic. Hello, friend. How are you doing?
So, first of all, multiple hugs later. I'm so glad to be on with you again. And I had so much fun the first time. I had to come back. I basically begged you to come back
You
on.
did say at the end of the interview last Friday that you were going to make sure that you came back on. And so here we are. Here we are on Radio
Manifest.
Row. Manifested at the NFL Scouting Combine. And as we noted last Friday, Jourdan, you and I were trying to plan that interview, and we very much were both aware that some news could be coming later in the day, Friday, and sure enough it did. So we're going to put a bow on the Jaguars' decision to hire not only Liam Cohen, the former Rams offensive assistant, but also James Gladstone, the former director of scouting strategy, as their next general manager. Walk us through the rest of your Friday last week before we headed out here to Indianapolis, but also the news that then eventually did come forth that James would be hired as the Jags GM.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I kept hearing from people once he got in the room in front of people, once he sat down and outlined a process and a plan, he was getting that job. And there was so much confidence from at least the Rams side of things that he was going to be like that guy because of their belief in him and their understanding of the work that he's done and what he's done to help overhaul their draft programming and a lot of their personnel. And so it was interesting. I was getting a lot of phone calls from Florida area codes because you were so gracious to have me on, and then I think a couple of newspaper people heard that.
I didn't give your number out.
No, I know you didn't,
I'm
I'm in
also
the
trying
book.
to still get your test results. So
yes, thank you so much.
Yes.
I need my Hexaco back. I'm in the media guide book, so that's where people were like, it was fun. It was like I was like, hey guys, let me talk about James for a little bit.
One after another.
Yeah, and so I guess for him, it's been a whirlwind. This is his first combine since 2019, which I gave him a lot of crap for because I'm like, oh, they finally dragged you back to Indianapolis, huh?
You also got a chance to talk with him on Radio Row this week for NFL Daily, and I'm curious, your conversation with him in terms of what your expectations were of how he would perform at his first combine since 2019 versus some of the answers you got and the vibes, the anecdotes you've gotten around Indianapolis from his first time here in 6 years.
Yeah, I don't think you can escape the fact that he looks so much younger than the majority of people here. Less so even general managers and head coaches. And I remember back in 2017, Sean McVay had the same experience where, everyone just thought, this guy's a baby, right? And at 34, it was striking to see some of the juxtaposition, especially, up at the podium. This is a guy who's been behind the scenes for years and years and years with the Rams, who has, in fact, actively tried to keep his name out of these hiring cycles because there was so much work and so much overhauling and process to do in Los Angeles. And he wanted to make sure to see that through. And so I found it very interesting that suddenly here he was out in the spotlight again, right? And I think he did well, honestly. Like, I appreciated that he came on daily because we could talk a little bit more of the process stuff, the nitty-gritty. He left Jaguars fans, I think, with a really, really great tagline about what to expect from their offensive linemen. If you could get in the way and stay in the way, you could be a Jacksonville Jaguar. And I think that that's very important because they're going to need to really do some evaluation on some of the trench stuff. He's very excited about the 10 draft picks that he said they have, quote unquote, for now. If you know anything about the Les Snead...
Yes, do tell the folks.
Yes,
yeah.
If you know anything about the Les Snead tree, there will be trades. There will be, Les Snead, Brad Holmes, James Gladstone, they all worked very closely together for a long time, and they do love to trade those picks, whether it is for more picks or whether it is for high-profile premier players. I would have to think that James is thinking a little bit more about getting more picks. He, I think, would like to really bring in a strong young core, a strong class. They already have some absolutely electric players. He was very excited about Brian Thomas Jr. I think anyone would be. Getting more out of Trevor Lawrence, protecting Trevor Lawrence. I think those are two big key action items for them. It was fun. I did get emotional, though, watching his teal suit press conference in the building in Jacksonville when he shouted out Les Snead and Kara Snead and the impact that they've had on his life. Like, that is very, very real. They are all very, very close. I know it has been complicated feelings in the Rams building this week because he will be very missed there.
And you couple that with the fact that his wife is 7 months pregnant, and I think he said, we got a 30-day window before she's like not allowed to travel or something like that. So we hit the 30-second shot clock or whatever, 30-day shot clock. Yeah. And James said, I'm glad you brought up Sean's first combine.
Yes.
I already said it in my quick hits. If you haven't seen it, check out it on the Jags or our 1010XL Jaguars YouTube and social channels. It's been interesting for me this week, Jourdan, because I've heard from so many people who maybe had questions because he's babyface, because he looks so young.
Yes.
Then they've gotten a chance to meet him either here at the convention center or somewhere in Indianapolis, and they've been very impressed. But at the same time, there is still this notion of, wow, they are so young and so green across the board. Les wasn't new to the job in 2017, but was it a similar experience covering that team to perhaps what we are experiencing here in Indianapolis this week, where across the league it's, they're really good pieces independent of each other, even if age is just a number and they're young. Liam Cohen and so many other members of that staff, but together, will it actually work?
I think what's helpful, there was at least one veteran core member, in this case it was Les back in that time. A lot of his senior scouts that he retained, that Sean wanted to retain, that stayed with him, building that continuity. James saw that firsthand. That was really important. I think that's going to be really important as he builds out what his staff is going to look like over there eventually. I think Baselli being there is really important. I think he's dynamic. I think he's charismatic. And what I keep hearing, which is probably the highest compliment that personnel people can give to other personnel people, is that he's very curious and he asks questions, and he's not, particular about the things that maybe he doesn't know or doesn't have a ton of experience with. And I think pairing somebody like that, who does have league experience in general, is more of a veteran, more of a senior member of the staff, I think that's an important balance, an important dynamic, because they're going to need a mix of ideas. They're going to need a mix of calculations is how James would put it. What I thought was very interesting was I think he is very aware that there will be a learning curve. And I think Liam is very aware for himself as well that there will be a learning curve. But what I think is cool for them specifically as they build out is it has seemed like Shad Khan wants to get this right. And I heard a lot about some of the behind the scenes of the process and how I know it was late. I know that's the kind of hilarious part is they actually had one of the best processes of this entire cycle, and one of the best processes I've seen in many years covering hiring cycles. But we think it's hilarious because it was late. It was so damn late. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, that's fair. Also fair, though, that it was a really meticulous and thorough, and I think they really identified in their candidate search a lot of who is coming next in the league and who we'll be talking about for a long, long time, and James being one of them. So I think that sent a message to me that Shad is willing to be patient in identifying who is next and giving them the runway to collaborate and make mistakes in public, which they will, and learn on the fly and grow together. And I think going through a couple of the bumps along the way will actually help them grow a lot together as a staff.
I love that you believe this is actually one of the better processes this cycle. Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic covers the Rams. That is a soundbite that I know Jaguar fans are going to love. Why? Why is it one of the better processes so far?
I thought they were really thorough. I thought they sought a range of experiences in the entire candidate pool. I thought they sought a range of backgrounds. They brought in voices who, they weren't all of the same tree. They weren't all of the same candidate pool. They were all from all different pockets, whether it was more of an emphasis on scouting and analytics, which is what James has, more of an emphasis on football side specifically, more of an emphasis on a rise through different buildings, such as Ian Cunningham has, tenured candidates, inexperienced candidates in terms of that big job, assistant GMs, scouting directors. I just thought they looked in a lot of places without looking in too many places and being overwhelmed with the sheer volume of people and ideas. I thought they were very meticulous about the questions that they ask. And what I heard about the interviews, which was with a variety of people on these calls initially before they narrowed it down to these finalists, was how many questions people asked, how they wanted to know things. They would pull from different, very specific action items or items that have been relevant, whether it's team building, roster building. the CBA, modern contracts, the things that the Eagles do with insurance on contracts, like all of these things that they were asking questions about were very forward-thinking and very progressive in terms of, again, wanting to get it right, and kind of, I think, a recognition that maybe they were behind a little bit in the past.
That's a huge thing. Admitting you were wrong. We talked about it on the air last Friday. Being okay with disagreeing, having a fight, if you may, which James then referenced in his introductory press conference on Monday. And so perhaps maybe this is where we look back in time. Lord help us, Jourdan. And this is where the Jaguars turned a corner. One final thing. I'm curious your take on what James said about how this draft process will play out for the Jacksonville Jaguars, because the scouting reports are largely done at this point.
Yep.
So he is going to take these reports that individuals who he has not hired, who he has not trained, have come up with, and he is going to take them and he is going to mold them and say, well, this is what the previous regime looked at this scouting report and said, this is what I look at this scouting report and say. How's that going to play out?
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to, on the outside, to understand that this is not going to technically be the inaugural James Gladstone draft class, because I thought what he said in our interview was very, very telling, where he said it is going to be so much more seamless in the short term to be one that blends into the collective versus try to disrupt the collective that is already 90% done with this entire process. What a lot of people don't know, most of these decisions and most of these analyses, all of the reports, a year's worth of intel is about 95% done by the time anyone even comes to the combine. It's part of the reason the Rams do not come to the combine. And because it's all done. The 5%, it's a crucial 5%, it's the medical cross-checks. That is the most key and critical element of what this week is. And all of those medical staffs are in a hallway down the hall doing all of those right now as a group, all 32 teams. And so that is the piece of missing information that that really allows them to dive into how they're going to set their boards, how they're going to do all James, I assume, will have a call sheet similar to Les, and how all of that is going to be navigated. And so I think that's important that he's treating it that way. He's not trying to initially come in and puff out his chest and be like your work didn't matter, it's my show now. He's not doing that. He is also, in my opinion, going to use this time to watch and to study and to see who is working and who he knows he could feel he could work with and whose processes he agrees with, and also to learn about maybe things he didn't know about what their process was, and who is going to be a part of this group and this collective with him moving forward. I think this is a very important time that sets up whatever happens next year at this time, less so maybe what happens in 2 months.
James Gladstone is sitting back and listening. I could sit back and listen to you all day. Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic. Second appearance in 1 week. Appreciate you so much. I know you've got a quarterback situation you need to go deal with.
I have Tums in my bag.
We'll leave it at that. Jourdan, thanks so much.
Thanks, Mia.
Hey, Mia here, and thanks so much for watching 1010XL Jaguars. For even more coverage of the Big Cats, be sure to subscribe to 1010XL Jaguars.